We're live, Temple.
Right.
Yeah, it looks like it's 11:59, so we'll just wait a second till everyone can. Oh, it's 9 o'clock, or I guess 12 o'clock, depending on where you are.
Yeah, I know. I keep seeing your time. I'm like, what? Where am I supposed to be?
So we're here. We're live. So we are so excited to be back again this week. And Temple, I'm so glad that you're joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. So for anyone that might be tuning in for the first time today, I'm Jessie Gray Rubenstein, and this is The Women Who Do. This series was created to highlight inspiring conversations during these historical and revolutionary times. So again, if this might be your first time watching, I'm Anne Klein's granddaughter, and this series was really created to honor my grandmother and celebrate her legacy and everything that she stands for as an innovator, and this just movement of strength. It's something I know I need, and I think we all need during these, historically just revolutionary times. So this leads me to a very exciting introduction. Again, I'm so excited that Temple's here today. Temple, I didn't tell you this earlier, but I'm actually quite obsessed with jewelry. You wouldn't know it right now. I have my Anne Klein watch on and like no earrings, but I actually took a course one summer in jewelry. I also took a course at FIT. So, and I love it, but I was pretty bad at it. So I'm really excited that we're here talking about it. And I'm going to pick your brain on all of your amazing designs and your work.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And it's an honor for you to be following this legacy of your grandmother. I mean, what a pioneer, you think of amazing women. It's great.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, stories that I grew up with, I hope that I can, live up to them. She was really a rock star. But yeah, I think we talked about this, a few minutes ago offline, but I found it so interesting that you come from this, your whole background is in Italian studies. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you kind of like pivoted from your, studies into jewelry design?
Well, in a way, I think the word pivot, it wasn't really a pivot, it was a continuation in a way. Because what I do still today, it's so connected to my early studies. And, I found myself in Italy there studying Italian Renaissance literature, and then in my junior college, and then went back, fell in love with the Italian culture and the history and the art, and went back for graduate school, and never chose, I mean, like you, I've always loved jewelry, and I loved the history of jewelry, and I loved jewelry of different cultures, whether as a young girl in the States, Native American jewelry, all sorts of things interested me in that way. But when it came to a time in my 20s where I was, kind of wanted, let's say grown-up jewelry, I don't know, I wanted a piece of gold jewelry, and I'm looking around Florence, which is just full of gold jewelry, but I didn't really see anything that I loved. And I was loving the details that I was seeing and studying in architecture and in the paintings, the Bronzino portraits and the Uffizi, and I wanted to have something made. And so I found an artisan in Florence, and I started having a few things made just from my own ideas. And also my mom, and these influential, women in our lives, my mom, my grandmother, they were incredibly interesting, aesthetic women with great collections of things and loved jewelry. And my mom actually came to Florence and wanted an ancient coin set in a piece of jewelry. And so that was kind of the catalyst to explore these artisans and their work. And that's how it all started. But it was very much connected to my literary studies and to storytelling.
And I always ask this, and sometimes there is, sometimes they're not, but was there kind of like an aha moment when you're like, oh, this is my path? Or did it kind of, you started making a couple pieces and you're like, wow, I really love this?
I don't know that there was an aha. There were little aha moments along the way. I think, that to develop in, particularly if you're in a creative field, I think it's many, many steps of, it takes a long time to gain the knowledge, particularly in jewelry, because there's so many parts of, whether it's the metals, the gemstones, the artistry, so many things to learn along the way. But I think when I realized, early on in my 20s, I was searching for a lifestyle of creativity and adventure. I would love to travel, I love to learn, I love to study. So I was trying to find something that fed all of those interests and needs. And the jewelry, all of a sudden, it percolated into this organism of this activity that has carried me for all these decades. And so I think the big aha moment, though, probably was along the way. I had an introduction back in the late 80s to the Pressman family at Barney's, the old 17th Street store. And I came back from Italy and with this letter of introduction saying, literally sort of walk up the street there and show them. I had an appointment to show them a few things. And I had no idea of that business. And they said, well, make a few more things. We love what you're doing, and we'll give you a case with your name on it in September. And that was the beginning of their jewelry department. So that, I don't even know if I knew that was, looking back, that was sort of an aha moment, because that sort of pushed me into commerce and dealing with stores. And, that was my first point of sale. And Barney's on 17th Street back in the day was such an important go-to place for any buyer coming into New York to see what was new, what was going on. So at that point I was still living in Italy, but I was subletting an apartment in the West Village, and I would walk up to Barney's and deliver a few things, and walk up to the go up to the Condé Nast building and go floor to floor and show people my things. And it was this very personal beginning. And yeah, I guess looking back, that was a big sort of aha and putting me over, the edge to get started and really have a business.
Wow. That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, my mom actually, she came from fashion industry as well, and would always tell me these awesome stories about Barney's. That's really cool to hear. And like, through the years, you've been in this business for a while. You're known for your most iconic rock crystal amulets.
Yeah.
And your pieces feature some of the rarest stones in the world. Kind of like through time, and as you've collected these amazing experiences through traveling and culture and everything else we experience in life, how have you kind of continued to draw inspiration for your designs, and how do you always like take in new inspiration?
It's changed over the years, but there's always been this through line of research and reading and going back to these universal stories, whether it's in mythology or even the early literature. Like right now, for some things I have coming out this fall, I've even gone back to Dante. I've gone back to the Divine Comedy. And I think I was mentioning to you before, about, I was thinking, sort of these about the plague in the 14th century Florence. I've sort of gone back to my origins in terms of, things I've studied. But, over the years, I've really used jewelry to explore different things that interest me. So whether it is celestial motifs, looking at ancient astronomical drawings, looking at marrying that with interest in astrology, which was, back thousands of years ago, and hundreds of years ago, really, astronomy and astrology were on equal footing in terms of how they were respected. So I love all of that. And then I'm a huge nature lover, so sometimes I'll just go to nature. And I don't know, one of my biggest sort of bodies of work in the last few years was the Golden Menagerie, where I was researching how we depict animals through our different forms of storytelling, whether it's through fairy tale or mythology, and then finally extinction. So I'm a researcher. I'm a researcher and a storyteller. and I just use jewelry to go down these different paths of interest. And jewelry comes out through the filters of things that I study and things that I collect and observe.
Wow. Are there any like specific stories of, I mean, I know especially we were talking about previously, we both actually studied in Italy, and something that I really found so fascinating being there is just learning about specific people. Has there been like one story about a woman or a family that inspired you, or like something that they had previously owned?
In terms of previously owned, like a jewel, or previous,
Yeah,
or
whether
you
it's
know,
like the Medici family or I don't know, something
well,
else.
really, there's a connection to actually my most iconic piece, the rock crystal amulets, that is connected more as a concept to, and that's what most of my things are. It's not like there's a specific thing and then I sort of recreate. It's again sort of put through a filter of inspiration and creativity, where like the rock crystal amulets, the concept of amulet it's the oldest form of jewelry. That's like the first form of human adornment, if you think about it. And whether an ancient person tied a little tooth or a rock or a feather or something around their neck, and it was this amulet. So that's where that concept comes from. But early on in my days in Florence, there was a beautiful exhibit, and I still have the catalogs from this exhibit. It was at the Archaeological Museum in Florence, and it was a collection of treasures, of personal treasures of Lorenzo de' Medici. And supposedly, when travelers came to town, Florence, during the Renaissance, he had great curiosity for where anyone had been, and for their stories of their travels, and for whatever treasures they might have in their pockets. And this particular exhibit was of very small personal treasures. And I think that particular exhibit was quite a catalyst for my work, not only from the items themselves, these precious gemstones, these different forms of charms and amulets and talisman, but also the idea of travel and the stories, that the origins of where these pieces came from. So that also fascinates me, and that connection of east to west, people traveling from, whether it was, from the royal courts of India, coming back through Venice, coming to Florence, making their way all the way to China. Those cultural connections of treasures and aesthetics and colors, and that drives me and inspires me in an ongoing way.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, I feel like that also supports your story because you're such a traveler. I mean, I know you were telling me that some of your stones come from corners of Australia. Um, like, where are these pieces of the world that you've kind of found these extraordinary stones? And I don't know if this is exposing any secrets, but could you tell us a little bit more about kind of like where these amazing, just rare jewels come from?
Well, sure. I mean, gemstones, the story and the history of precious gemstones and of precious metals is fascinating. And, humans have been obsessed with sparkly, beautiful things forever, time immemorial. So, and I continue in that lineage. And
Same.
so, and it really is so relationship driven, because it's like, it's interesting over the years, also being a woman in this industry. Now there are a lot of women designers, but when I first started, there were not that many. There were some of the big iconic women at Tiffany. It was Elsa Peretti, is Angela Cummings, but it was most very male dominated. And it's interesting. It has been interesting for me as a woman, in particular, early on, to sort of make my inroads into these relationships, because it's very, even the gemstone business, it's very, thinking about it, there are some women now, but it's very male dominated. And it's a matter of trust and respect, you know, gaining these people's respect that you're going to do well by their materials. And particularly in the colored gemstone world, because, diamonds, you can pretty order up any diamond that you want to work with. But for someone from Lightning Ridge, Australia, to give you a great gemstone to work with, you've got to. I'm at the level where I'm working with old miner families where these people have
Wow.
treasures under their pillows that they like you and trust you and respect what you're doing. They'll let you have one of these to work with. And same goes with some of the German cutters. They'll have things in their drawers that they may have for decades that they're not showing to anyone until the mood strikes them and they like you and they want, they like what you've been doing, and they'll impart, some treasure. So I kind of love that part of the business because there's kind of, secret, and it's really, and then the relationship goes to the clients. I think that's the way the jewelry world is a little different maybe than ready to wear, or maybe at an haute couture level in the fashion world. It gets, people are closer, materials, designer, client. But, I'll find gemstones these days and think of a certain client that I know might want to have that as part of her collection. So there's this little line of relationship from literally like the mine, through me to a client. But yeah, it's a network. It is a network, and it hasn't changed much. There, talking about travel, there's a travel writer. I think he's 17th century. Either he's 17th, 18th century. Tavernier was this wonderful French traveler that kept travel diaries. He traveled amazingly into India, I think 9 times in his life, which if you think about how he would have gotten there, it would have been Silk Road. And he, kept these diaries of trading for gemstones in India. And
Wow.
it's just fascinating. And that hasn't changed. It really hasn't changed, for centuries. Someone will hand you something that's, very precious and very valuable. And on a handshake, they'll say, yeah, keep that, work with that,
So even in the age of having so much technology, are these relationships developed more so, over online, over email, over calls, or do you find that you really need to be traveling to India, to Australia, Germany, to really create these close connections?
Well, I mean, my work life was born, pre-digital. So a lot of these relationships were pretty much established early on in person and in traveling. And of course, these days, yes, so many things have changed in the arc of my career in terms of communications and how we get things. But yeah, these days it's, luckily a lot of these relationships are tried and true. And now recently, even during this pandemic, we needed, I was looking for some, I was looking for some demantoid garnets. Demantoid garnets are among the most precious gems of the garnet family, and some of them are much dearer than any diamond, and they're extremely unique. And these were coming out of Russia, but they had to be shipped to Hong Kong, and then they had to go this weird way around. It's almost like they had to go through the Silk Road to get here. And yeah, and
Did they make it? They made it to New York, okay, though?
They are in a piece now. I just have a new sort of haute couture piece that just arrived stateside. I mean, luckily for me, during this, pandemic, a lot of my production is overseas. So, overseas, Italy started opening up certainly more, or earlier than we did. So I have certain things that I was working on that came to a halt, and that demantoids were needed in one particular piece that's just made its way over. So, yeah.
Wow. I can't wait to see it.
It's not been revealed yet.
It will be, though?
It will be, yeah. It's I work, basically how I work, there's sort of like a pyramid structure to the levels of work, or the rather the categories. So there's kind of at the top, there's an haute couture level of pieces that would be like the golden menagerie pieces, and those pieces take months and months and months to put together. So this particular piece I was working on last summer, so it's just coming to the light now, and it will be revealed soon. And the second sort of group of pieces that I do are high jewelry pieces, and for us the high jewelry pieces are very gemstone dictated, so usually they're very unusual, unique gemstones as a sort of limited edition or one-of-a-kind pieces. And then there's the fine jewelry level where it's more thematic. And so I have a new collection coming out. The first part of it is going to be coming out later this month, actually. It's 3 chapters. The first chapter, it's celestial related, because that's sort of another area I play in, is sort of this astronomical area. So that's coming out a little later this month. But so I work in these sort of different realms all the time.
So do you have any insider celestial Leo? Oh, for everyone watching, Temple and I found out that we have the same birthday right before this, which is so cool. Yeah. I don't know anybody else. Actually, you know who has our birthday, Temple? Madonna.
I know. I was wondering what she was doing on her birthday. Yeah, no, it's a good birthday. Of course, for Leos,
Yeah. Anne Klein she was also a Leo too, August 3rd.
Oh my God, my mother's August 4th.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Wow. We have some celestial alignment.
Yes, definitely. And I actually do small little zodiac charms, which I love. And they are, years ago, actually, I was with my parents, my very influential Leo mom. We were in Burgundy country. We were in Vézelay in France. And there is this very beautiful abbey in Vézelay, which apparently was the Crusades departed from this, little abbey years ago. And the church itself has these reliefs of astrological figures. And that I just love, because it's sort of the mixture of the pagan and the Christian, and it's sort of right up my alley. And I had taken photographs of these little zodiac, astrological drawings, and I sort of held on to them for years, and then finally got around to doing these little pendants with them. And I made them kind of like coins, so they're convex and sort of carved little reliefs that I did with one of my artisans in Italy. So there's a very beautiful Leo. You'll have to check it out.
So cool. Well, yeah. Temple, we're actually in 2 weeks that's August 5th. We have Susan Miller coming on, and she's an astrologer. So I think you would like that episode.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry, when's she coming in? You already talked to her? Or?
No, upcoming on August 5th. And
it means September 5th. September 5th?
Oh my God, it's September 5th already.
Yes,
September 5th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a lot about August 16th. So it'll relate well to you too. But I've been seeing a lot of really awesome comments coming in on our live chat here. So I want to make sure that we get to some of these. Let's see. Okay, Skylar Rowetter. Sorry if that's not the correct pronunciation. How did you choose artisans to craft the pieces?
Oh, that's pretty funny. Some of it's been serendipitous. Others been incredibly researched. I mean, years and years ago, when I first started and was living in Florence, there is an artisanal tradition in Florence, and it used to be that any Florentine signora or her daughters, they would have their shoes made, their clothes made. Everything was, basically tailored or almost, crafted in some way, and including jewelry. And so when it came around to the time that my mom was actually visiting and wanted an ancient coin set in a necklace, I asked an Italian friend for her goldsmith. And I went into this area in Florence that is multiple goldsmith studios, and it's a very complicated place. You can't tell really what one address is from the other. So I think I ended up with someone that wasn't even the person that was recommended to me. But so it was this, petrified artisan seeing, young woman, non-Italian, walk in the door, and just started having things done with him, and seeing this 24 karat gold lying around, and working with him. So after that, and it worked out very well in the beginning, because it was kind of an exploration of jewelry in the very beginning, and my own little sort of study of the history of gold early on. After that, I've gotten a little more scientific about my approach to finding artisans. Some of my goldsmiths, that particular goldsmith is long retired, but my goldsmiths I work with in Florence, I tried out, through introduction, and then give them some things to try. I've been working with them for 30 years now. The oldest is, he's just celebrated his 84th birthday. I think he's still at the bench working, and his son is working. And so I work with that group. I also work with, artisans in Italy are younger generations are not necessarily coming into that tradition, because it takes a long time. And most of my goldsmiths, have been working since they were 14 or so, and they were apprentices. So I have some other workshops I work with up near Milan. And then I've had to look outside of Italy over the years. So some 20 years ago, I got a lead on some incredible craftspeople in Sri Lanka. And I went to Sri Lanka, and I took samples of things, and I tested out different goldsmiths and had them make things. So, there are different approaches to, and that's what I still do. If I have some other people I'm considering working with in Italy right now, and I usually give them something complicated and I'll give them, the actual sample and see if they can execute it, and, see what their skill level is and whether they can meet our demands. And then, again, it has to be a relationship, because it's especially when you're working with really complicated pieces that could take months and months to do, you have to have somebody that, can work with you. Because none of the shops I work with are like really manufacturing. They're all working things out. You need people that will problem solve with you and figure things out. And it's a real collaboration. So it's skill level, personality, all that.
That's amazing. I mean, that's so rare to have relationships like that for so many years. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. There's a lot of questions. I want to make sure we get to one more. Lou Lacavelli asks, what is your secret for staying a true original throughout your amazing career?
Thank you, Lou. That's a nice question. I think it's just because it's, I'm just kind of very persistent. I have a point of view, and I have things I love, and I'm a creature of habit, and I go narrow and deep in everything I do. And I for the moment, I'm still, extremely active and hands-on to all parts of my business. Probably to a fault for some of my colleagues in my business. They're like, Temple, you can relax a little and let us handle this. But, I just really care about, I'm so detail oriented, and, read OCD. I don't know. I hold true to the things I love in terms of the literature and art, that inspires me. So I think just all of that contributes. It's not one thing. It's just, all of that contributes to my character. Yes.
Yeah. As a fellow Leo, I know what you mean about the going narrow and deep, and sometimes being too hands-on.
Yeah. It's hard to, it's hard to not be, but it's it's okay.
Well, Temple, thank you so much for being here today. I have some offline questions about mixing gold and silver, so we'll get to that later.
Okay.
I haven't quite figured that out yet, so some more personal questions to come.
No problem.
Thank you again.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been amazing speaking with you. I loved hearing about your experiences in Italy and just how you've married your art form with history. It's incredible.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So for everyone else watching, little swap, it's actually next on September 2nd, not August. I cannot even believe that we are almost in September. This summer is flying by way too quickly. It is scary beyond belief. But on September 2nd, we have Pat Cleveland. She's an American model. She actually, walked in the Battle of Versailles fashion show in 1973. So I'm so excited to hear about that. All the stories I grew up with are about this fashion show. So Pat, I apologize in advance for the 50 questions I'm about to throw your way. And Susan Miller will be on September 16th, which is actually perfect because it's exactly a month later from our birthdays, Temple.
Pat's amazing. That'll be a fun one. I remember her.
Yeah, I'm excited. Well, everyone, thank you again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you back in 2 weeks. Thank you. Take care, Temple.
Thank you. Bye-bye.